Today I'm going head to head with my friend Micah to see who can turn the Iron Giant into the most terrifying horror poster.
What's up? My name is Micah, and I make Photoshop videos. For my poster, I want to imagine what it would be like if the Iron Giant came to our world and just started destroying stuff. So I got this cool action figure of the Iron Giant, but it's not the best quality, so I am going to upscale the image, which I think definitely helps. But now let's add this nice street image into Photoshop and remove the cars in the back, as well as the people on the side. Next, I'll remove the sky and go around all the lights with a yellow glow to make it look like they're more bright. I'm also gonna add this cloudy sky in the back and lighten up the ground up front to make it look like some street lights or something. And after that, I cut out the action figure, which took way too long, but luckily you don't have to watch that. So let's add it onto the street and then use the puppet warp tool to move its arms a bit. But let's start messing up the environment around him. So I'll add some rubble behind his feet, which is alright, but let's also make it look like some of the buildings in the back are more destroyed, and then make sure the cars aren't being cut off by it.
For my poster, I want to turn the Iron Giant into something straight off King Kong or Godzilla, and have the robot rampage through the city. I started out with this foggy city photo, and I really liked the perspective. Then I imported the robot, and that's the best image I could find. I'm masking out some of these buildings so that they appear in front of him. That way, he looks like he's actually in the scene. I also wanted some destruction, so I'm gonna cut out parts of this broken building. Cutting stuff out by hand in Photoshop is kinda like a high school class. It makes me want to throw myself out the window. Anyways, I'm matching the color grading to the rest of the scene, and that's pretty good. I'm also adding this explosion under the robot, just to make it clear that he's not here to help.
I added another broken down building to replace this big one in the back and put it behind the trees. But to remove the building, I'm going to use generative fill, and that looks pretty good. But there are some more buildings that we need to destroy, and one of them is this one in the back here. Let's add this other destroyed building and just remove some random parts to make it look half destroyed, and then add that same building to the other side of it. If you look at the action figure, it has some cool arms, I guess. They're not just like regular. What am I doing? So let's get this broken car and put it in the giant's claw thing, and after moving it above the giant layer, I'll erase the part of the car in front of the claw so it looks like it's holding it. I also need to remove these shadows that came with the image and then add my own onto the robot and the car.
The robot stands out way too much, so I'm gonna fog him up a little bit. I'm also boosting the contrast on the buildings in front of him so that they pop more. And since there is an explosion underneath him, we need some dramatic lighting. I'm using a graphic tablet for the first time, and it really makes a difference. It's maybe even a little fun making highlights with this. I'm also throwing some highlights on the building to reflect the blast. And the sky is kinda bright, so I'm gonna paint a backlight on this guy as well. An evil robot isn't evil if it doesn't have red eyes, so let's add those.
Let's add some shadows onto the ground below the giant's feet before darkening up the rubble behind him. Now let's duplicate the giant and angle it against the ground as a shadow and make sure to connect it with the feet. I'll use the field blur tool to make it more blurry at the bottom, and then I'll use the gradient tool and a brush to fix that up a bit. I do think it would be cool if we added some cracks onto the ground because it just gives us more depth and something else to look at, and I liked how that looked, so I decided to add some chips into the wall of this building and another one on this wall. So this is looking alright, but these buildings do kind of look burnt, so we should probably add some fire to go with it, and then we'll just make sure to erase the parts we don't need. I'm also going to put some fire in the street over here and add some smoke to go with it. But how did the fire get there in the first place? Well, I'm guessing it's this little thing on the giant's right arm, so let's turn that into a flamethrower and give the area some highlights. I'm also going to adjust the color on the bottom of the giant and then color in this part of the arm with green, and then erase the metal parts before adding some white on top of that and adding a little bit of a glow. I'm also going to color in the eyes with red and add a white glow in the middle. I guess I should also add some light coming from this fire onto the road and some shadows on its feet. But now I think it's time we go around this huge robot and add some highlights to bring it into the scene more.
So as you can probably tell, this looks super flat. And trying to work on the lighting while the contrast is so low is basically impossible. So I'm jumping into the camera filter. Here I'm just playing with the contrast and sharpness to get a feel for where this could go. And you can already see the reddish colors starting to show up. Once there's contrast, I'm relighting the scene and then putting the camera filter back on.
Let's add the title at the top and adjust that a little bit. Let's also make sure to add the above that. I'll add a texture and a bevel and emboss, as well as a gradient overlay so it's not just gray. But one thing I did actually forget to do was to make the robot look a little bit more worn out. So I'll just add some scratches onto its chest and remove what I don't want. And then I'll just do that same thing on its legs and onto the head. But finally, to bring it all together, I'll add a camera raw filter.
I'm not really feeling these colors, so I started experimenting with a gradient map, throwing in some red and orange tones to push a more stylized vibe onto this poster. Then it's a matter of playing with the blending modes until it looks right. The really cool thing is, you can easily work on the lighting just by painting black or white underneath the gradient map. I brought in the original title and gave it a silver color fill. And because of the gradient map, it instantly turns red and matches the rest of the image. I also threw Brad Bird's name on the poster, because why not? As you can see, the title is really flat and it feels out of place. So I put a ton of grain on it, followed by a crystallized effect.
Nice job, team.
The last detail is a plane fleeing the chaos that I just cut out and placed there. These are two posters, and as usual, you can tell us which one you prefer in the comments. A huge thanks to Micah for doing this with me, and you can watch our previous collaboration right here.